Welcome into PFF HQ. Austin Gayle here with Sam Monson, ready to talk some rookies that are going to be stealing snaps away from veterans. And I think the first and foremost, you look at Darryl Henderson out of Memphis going at Todd Gurley, who isn't at OTAs. That injury is definitely something. He didn't play a ton in the Super Bowl because of it, and he's not playing a ton now. I think Darryl Henderson has a real shot to play early in his career, much earlier than people expected.
Right, since the news emerged that Todd Gurley is going to be dealing with arthritis in his knee, that's a long-term degenerative problem. We don't know how much time he's going to spend on the field if he's healthy, and we don't know how much practice time. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for Darryl Henderson to get in there and show the coaches what he can do. And the most crucial thing is, I think he's got every chance of taking advantage of those because of the situation around him. You're talking about the Sean McVay offense, which is A, spectacular to begin with. B, you're talking about the number one run blocking offensive line in the league a year ago. It's probably going to be a pretty good one again this year. This is a situation that's set up for running backs to look really good. And then you match that scheme with what Henderson does really well, that outside zone runs. He's got the speed to take advantage of those, averaged 10 yards per carry on those outside zone runs a year ago in college. I think he could basically look like a star in practice, and at that point, it's going to be hard for the Rams to say, okay, sit back down, Darryl, we're going to put Todd back in now that it's game time.
Exactly. If you look at Darryl Henderson and in Todd Gurley's shoes, you don't want this guy to have opportunities. He's a home run hitter, one of the most explosive backs we've seen in the PFF college era. He had the most explosive runs we've seen from a running back this past season. There's a reason he was drafted where he was. They traded up to get him because I think they're seeing Todd Gurley, that knee issue, that arthritis issue, as a real concern. I think Darryl Henderson comes in, steals snaps early, and if he plays well like we expect him to, he could be in there long term. Moving forward, I want to talk Irv Smith. I think the contract situation you have with Kyle Rudolph, there's a chance that they start to play Irv Smith a little bit more. He's only 21 years old, very young product that thrived in Alabama's offense, specifically after the catch. I think he can do a lot of those things in Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean, there's two conversations here, right? There's if Kyle Rudolph is still on the roster, what does the situation with Irv Smith look like? And there's if Kyle Rudolph gets traded or cut, what does it look like? At that point, obviously, Irv Smith becomes their number one tight end, and you just hope that he can give you the same kind of production. But if he's still on the field with Kyle Rudolph, I think there's a couple of different ways they can still get him into the offense. He could become their kind of slot receiver, their third receiver. They were using their number one pick, Laquan Treadwell, from a couple of years ago as that third guy. Obviously, he's been a disaster throughout his tenure in Minnesota, but they still need a third threat outside of Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen. Irv Smith could be that guy along with Kyle Rudolph. Alternatively, Kyle Rudolph has been impressive, but there's still room for a second tight end to come in there and make more sort of athletic, explosive plays, the kind of thing that Irv Smith can do and that Rudolph was maybe capable of doing in his younger days.
Irv Smith is a premier athlete. Like I said, he's great after the catch. He's a mismatch weapon, which you need at the tight end position. With tight end, a lot of it is scheme focused, getting him open on play action and just getting him in space, like we saw with George Kittle. Get him the ball in space through great scheme of Kyle Shanahan, and he'll do great things. I think you see that with Evan Ingram down the stretch of last year, and you could see that with Irv Smith, more so than Kyle Rudolph. I think he's getting a little bit older. He's not the mismatch threat that he once was, the red zone reindeer or whatever people called him a couple of years ago in fantasy football. But I think Irv Smith starts to attack and take away from Kyle Rudolph's snaps. Moving forward to on the defensive side of the ball, Tampa Bay corners, two rookies, Jamel Dean out of Auburn and Shawn Bunting out of Central Michigan. Two guys that we were high on, earned high grades in the system, and I think they bring a lot of talent to a Tampa Bay secondary. Highest graded player last year in the secondary was Javian Elliott, I think at 68.3. They need help, and I think both those rookies can offer help very early.
Right, and already there have been rumblings of discontent with Vernon Hargreaves and the new coaching staff led by Bruce Arians. Wasn't at OTAs. They were told you had to go and ask Vernon why he wasn't practicing today. That doesn't sound good, and that's a Vernon Hargreaves that's dramatically underachieved so far in the NFL. So I guess the main point is that there's nothing keeping these two guys from being on the field. There's no veterans there that are warding off the incoming threat from these young bucks. They need an injection of talent, and if those guys are anything close to the players we saw in college, they'll be on the field to see if they can do it at the NFL level, because so far nobody they have on the roster already is playing at that level.
Yeah, and with Shawn Bunting, reports out of OTA say they're playing him in the slot. He's a bigger, longer corner. You project him as an outside corner because he has that upside, that ceiling, but playing him in the slot early, getting him used to covering number 3 wide receivers, I think could improve his skill set. And with Jamel Dean playing outside, and they've even moved him around the secondary to some safety positions, they want to get these guys involved, and for obvious reasons. Vernon Hargreaves not showing up to OTAs is not a good business decision, in my opinion. He is underwhelmed on the field. He needs to be doing everything to get on the field and prove that he can be a good player in the NFL. I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I think regardless of where they play, Bunting and Dean will get snaps early, and I think they'll play well. Going to Denver, Mile High. We're talking Drew Locke potentially stealing snaps away from Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco, an unwilling mentor that drew some great Twitter buzz in recent weeks. But I think Drew Locke, because of how talented he is and where the Denver Broncos are, they're not really within reach of a ring per se. I think they need to start looking for the quarterback of the future. Stopgap solutions don't do a ton for you when you're trying to find if you have your guy. I think Drew Locke could be that guy, and I think they need to give him snaps early.
Yeah, I think Denver's quarterback selection in the draft was one of two sort of perfect draft situations. The other one being Washington staying where they were in the first round and having Dwayne Haskins slip all the way to them and getting the quarterback they wanted. I think Locke in the second round is ideal. I think we were concerned about him going in the first, given what we'd seen from him. His PFF grade had improved every single year of his college career, but it never quite reached the heights that you want to see from a talented future franchise quarterback, the same levels that we saw from a Kyler Murray or from a Baker Mayfield the year before. Locke never got there, but he was heading in that direction. And I think in the second round, when you look at the tools that he has, the arm, the stature, the fact that he has developed every single year, that makes perfect sense. You don't need him to start day one because you have Joe Flacco and you can work on developing him down the line. But the bottom line is Joe Flacco is Joe Flacco, and at some point, he's probably going to dictate that you take a look at Drew Locke in that rookie season because, Flacco's unlikely to play great.
In addition to that, with Drew Locke, there's a lot of young pass-catching talent in Denver that I think you want to start building chemistry with. Noah Fant, obviously the first-round tight end, second-year products, Cortland Sutton and Deshaun Hamilton. Emmanuel Sanders isn't going to play forever, and I think this team wants to start moving forward, take that next step, a new regime, a new offense. I think Drew Locke is going to be the face of that offense sooner rather than later, especially if he plays well and takes snaps away from Joe Flacco in 2019. This has been Sam Monson and Austin Gayle. To read the full article on ProFootballFocus.com, which includes the likes of Nasir Adderley, A.J. Brown, Chase Winovich, go ahead and go to the site. And while you're there, subscribe to PFF's Edge or Elite subscription to get access to all the advanced stats and grades we speak to. Thanks again.